For too long, leadership has been measured by power, platform, and prestige. But what if true leadership isn't about being seen, but about choosing to see? Today's world isn't starving for more titles or influences. It's hungry for builders, ordinary people with extraordinary courage, the kind of leaders who dare to begin, who rise through resistance, who build when others walk away. We need the ones who say, maybe I'm not the most qualified, but I care, and I'm willing to try. That's the kind of leadership that matters. That's the kind of leadership that lasts. In The Builders, how ordinary leadership, what does it really mean? Is it a title, a spotlight, a seat at the table, or is it something deeper, something quieter? For too long, leadership has been measured by power, platform, and prestige. But what if true leadership isn't about being seen, but about choosing to see? Today's world isn't starving for more titles or influences. It's hungry for builders, ordinary people with extraordinary courage, the kind of leaders who dare to be
Hello, hello. So we are starting soon. I'm not sure why that playback was cracking. We're starting soon, but the playback is talking about this book. Get a copy of this book. It's available on Amazon. Yeah, so we actually have the Kindle version. So you can also get this from your Kindle if you have Amazon Kindle. And you can get this. And if you're in Nigeria, it's available at any Roving Heights store near you. You will get a copy of this a token. And also we are doing a giveaway. I think it's up on our social somewhere. You can stand a chance to also win a copy of this book. I think you just need to do a video and share an experience, right? What instance have you seen an ordinary person, change their community, change their society, advocate for change at a grand scale that has changed, some people's way of life? do a video, check out the terms and condition of that giveaway, and do a giveaway, and do a video to stand a chance to win the book for free, and we can send the book to you. So we're starting soon. Just give us a few more minutes to start. Today is a solo session. I want to make sure that we are live on LinkedIn and on YouTube before we start. And yes, you can watch all our past sessions on YouTube. Just check for the Builders Conference and you can see some of the amazing people that we have, interviewed so far. Share their stories, share their experience on how they have built so much traction considering whatever they've been building. We've spoken to someone in the tech space, someone in the health space, sharing about their experience. So be sure to catch that on our YouTube. I think we're live on YouTube already. And we're going to start. So for this session, also use the comment section wherever you are joining us from, whether YouTube, whether LinkedIn, drop a comment in the chat. Let us know if you want us to pull you up on the stream, if you have something to share with the audience. Let us know. And we can always bring up your comments on screen. Yeah, I think we can just start. Give us 2 more minutes to start off. We start at exactly 4 p.m. Grab your popcorn, grab your tea. Let us know in the chat where you are joining us from. Let us know. Where are you joining us from? Are you joining us from Nigeria? I'm currently in Lagos, Nigeria. Well, let us know the country you are joining us from. We would love to get to know you and let us know what you are currently building. What are you currently working on? Are you currently working on your personal brand? Are you currently working on a business? Let us know and share some of the experiences or some of the lessons that you know I can share with anyone that is still starting up in the journey. Share with us. Share with us, and we'll pull it up on the stream. Share with us. Yes, it's 4 o'clock, and I'm starting this session. So today is a solo session, and it's just me. And but it's an opportunity for me to also reflect, to also share with you why we're doing what we're doing, to also get your thoughts, your comments, to also share, as the initiator of this project, what I had in mind, right, and how that has been coming along, right, for the past few months now. It's actually May. If you're joining me from my personal page, hopefully you saw that newsletter last week where we talked about it's May and the year is half spent, and the newness of 2026 has worn off, right? And currently we're assessing our goals, our visions, all our new year resolution is out now. We have proof. Are we going to achieve it by December 2026, or we're going to move that goal over to 2027? So today's session is a bit different.
Begin. Who rise through resistance.
Let us apologies for that mix up. I think the network resolved itself. Yes, let me know if you can still see me and hear me. Give me a moment to fix that. I think the connection is off. Okay, I think we're back on now. I think we're back on now. The connection is back now. Okay. So I think this is typical of Nigeria. Our connection, got choppy somewhere in between and we cut off. Hopefully you haven't dropped off and you can always come back to the stream. And we're just starting. We're just starting. This is still 4:06 and we are starting. I'll probably recap, right? So typically, I have these sessions, these LinkedIn live sessions every Saturday where we talk about or we speak with founders, right? And we ask them questions around how they started off their journey, the current challenges they're facing in their journey, how they are navigating it, how they believe that ordinary people like you and I, with our poor internet connections, you know, can change the world. That is really the thesis of this ongoing conversation we're going to be having to the rest of all Saturdays by 4 p.m. for the rest of the year, is to have that discourse, is to have those conversations with people in their I had a newsletter up earlier today about how successful people, most oftentimes discount the factors that lead to their success. Also, because there's this illustration that when a woman is pregnant, she feels so much burdened by the pain, the weight, the discomfort. But once she delivers the child, she can't, most times, right? Some instances, some women can describe the pain. Most times, they are not able to fully describe or fully put into words the pain, right? And most times are typically those that swore that they will never do it again typically get back in the next few months, right? So I wanted to speak with people who are on their trajectory to success, who are not far removed from ordinary people like us, and to understudy that conversation, to understudy that phenomenon. How does it happen? And we're not asking why. We're asking how. What is the framework? What are the practical things? How is their daily lives like? Can we pattern our lives around that? So that we increase our odds of success, right? So that's really what this sessions is about. But today we don't have a guest, so we are we you and I are looking at reflecting, right? So make sure you use the comment section. Let me know if you want to share something publicly. We can also always bring you live, or live up on the screen, and to reflect on this question, right? What are our experiences? What have we seen happen to people around us? What are we seeing happening in our lives, right? And that is what this session today will be about, right? And yes, this platform is still very much early, and with just a few months, I think we've just spoken to 3 4 persons, and the audience is still growing. But maybe that's also part of the message, because one thing I've seen around leadership is that it feels like an internal thing. It's an internal resolution you make with yourself. It necessarily doesn't have anything to do with external validation or external audience or external applause. And it's something that happens even before the room is full, even before you have people to, buy into the vision, to follow the vision. It is something that happens right before then. So that's why we're having these sessions. And if you bump into this platform, maybe on this session, you can scroll back and listen to those sessions where we interviewed other people, right? I think that we generally also misunderstand leadership, right? And we think they are extraordinary people, right? People with background, even beyond background, people have a certain type of persona, right? Extroverted people, people who can communicate, people who have all the, the, I think growing up, we had all these resources on leadership traits and how to cultivate leadership traits, people who have a certain type of trait. But increasingly, what I'm beginning to see is that leadership is doesn't, it's not necessarily about the traits or about the personality. It's really about when a regular, ordinary person like you and I decide that a problem is now their responsibility. It's a decision thing. It's not necessarily a trait thing. It's not necessarily, yes, those things are, the charisma is good. There's the flair around it, right? There's a thing about the type of people that people would, the type of person or the type of persona that people would immediately gravitate towards. There's that, right? But the leadership in its core sense is really about decision and responsibility. That is really what I've seen in from these conversations with these people, and what I'm also seeing in my daily life. And I think the first theme I want us to reflect on today, and which I'm reflecting out aloud with you, is the myth of extraordinary people. When people talk about, for even example, Elon Musk or Steve Jobs or Nikola Tesla, when we study them or when we read about their story, we really over romanticize things. It's really about the extraordinary things that happen in their life. We all came into this world, but there's a particular, we are obsessed about the particular reason why we think these people stand out, right? We're saying maybe it's how they grew up. Maybe we look for ways to discount it. And I talked about it earlier in my newsletter today about discounting success, right? When you look at the success equation, a lot of things are play, but we're always looking for the ones that maybe are outside our reach. If someone asks you why you're not successful, you would give them 10 reasons, right? What you have seen in someone's life, which you believe you did not have. We're over romanticizing people that we see at the pinnacle of success. And I want to reflect on one thing that I have seen is that how people talk about history, people often rewrite history after success. I've seen this in movies because I'm a movie lover. When you read some of the biographies of people and when you watch the adaptation, and where you the more you hear the story, the more the story kind of, rewrites success, right? What I had on my notes is that talk about people talk about history in a way that factors in the success at the beginning. I think that's the other word for it. We most times do not see the lack of confidence that the person went through. We don't see the uncertainty. We don't see the challenges. We only focus on the outcomes, not the confusion. We only focus on the impact and not on the years of obscurity. A good example I had here is, when we all familiar, if you have internet, you probably have heard Steve Jobs story, right? Apple, everyone, almost everyone, I wouldn't say everyone, almost everyone uses an Apple device. And we've all heard about the story. And when you listen to how people tell that story, because it also matters, right? We talk about how do you change the consciousness of a society is by the stories we tell ourselves, is by our self-talk, is by our movies, is by our culture, how we pass down information in stories. When you talk about someone like Steve Jobs, and I'm using Steve Jobs because it's a popular thing that everyone would know and everyone would have probably heard the story or watched clips of the story online. You might not have heard the entire story, but you have seen a clip of the story online. People talk about him in a way that, as if he was destined to build something important, right? And history remembers his genius. He was a genius. His black turtleneck, his keynote speeches, which are viral, and everybody's talking about 10 things you can learn from him. And the myth of Apple, what he did, the iPhone, how that was groundbreaking. That is really what the story you see online it's about, and that is what is passed down from generations to generations. The persona, this person called Steve Jobs that revolutionized, smartphone devices. But most times that's not the full story, right? We've heard the story of how he was fired by a company he founded, right? What that single line shows that there were seasons where his leadership was questioned, where his ideas looked, didn't make sense, right? And where the story could have ended differently, right? But because we know how this story ends, we gloss over that season of his life around, oh, he was fired, but he came back, and then everything now suddenly became successful. We gloss over that one line. We forget and we factor it in. So when we're telling the story, we say because we already know the end that he was successful, we gloss over those seasons of pain, of obscurity, of the internal struggle he was battling with. We gloss over it. And this is what history often does. It edits out, the uncertainty, removes the confusion. It makes people look confident, right? He knew what he was doing. When he walked out, the day he was fired and he walked out of the company, he knew what he was doing and he knew he was going to come back. Do you think he knew? Right? It makes people look confident. It makes people look destined. He was destined for it, and it makes people look extraordinary, like they were different. And it removes, and that doesn't, and those stories do not empower ordinary people. It just makes people feel that these people have extraordinary circumstances which I do not have, so I cannot attempt the feat that they've attempted, right? So this is why I'm actually interested in the ordinary phase of leadership, because before people become case studies and we publish our biographies and we are deemed successful, we are just ordinary human beings who are trying, failing, adjusting, staying with the problem long enough to solve it, before the world recognizes us, right? So that is really why I'm obsessed with that idea, because oftentimes we edit out when we listen to people's story because we know the end, we edit the struggle in between, right? So that is really why So the first thing I wanted to, the other thing I've also been reflecting on is that many people and the successful people, and when you look at successful people's story, you see that solving a world changing problem takes time. Which is one thing I think about as a generation. I don't know where we are going with that, right? We have a lot of things at our fingertips, but time is something that we have not, figured out a way to deal with. That solving issues take time. That it will take time for us to understand the problem. It will take time for us to solve the problem. Time, time that many people, even when you listen to the Steve Jobs story at instance, he didn't just make the groundbreaking invention in one day. When you talk about Nikola Tesla, people talk about the how many old, but most times in our generation, I don't even know if we have that level of patience to keep trying, um, solutioning an idea over and over again and pushing through those seasons of failure. At least I saw one Elon Musk clip online which who the interviewer was asking him when the rocket launch failed the first time, um what made you go back, right? What made you go back? And he tells the story about how he had a friend that, did a compilation of all the failed rocket launchers and played it for him. And he did it the first time, he failed. He went again the second time. When the second time that he failed, what made him go back? Because that is what we need to be studying. What made him go back? These are not extraordinary human beings, right? Because we now know he's successful, we are discounting the fact that he failed severally. And in those his seasons of failure, there's something we can learn and apply to our daily lives, right? So that is that is one key thing. What made these people go back even when they failed? What made them continue to, try again? What kept them going, right? What is the I wouldn't say motivation. What is the driving force? And one thing I'm seeing is that leadership, or people who are leaders, are people who have stayed with a problem long enough, right? They have that problem has suddenly become a burden to them, and they stay with that issue long enough. They try out things, but it's that same issue. Most successful people you see are people who have been working on one idea for a very long time. One idea for a very long time. Like finding your life mission and making that your duty every morning. That is something I have. And let me know if you have also seen that in, reflecting about successful and, successful people and leadership, people who are leadership oriented, are amazing leaders that you have seen, or you have come across, right? So this also, poses a question to you listening. This also pose the question to me. What is a problem that I can solve? One of my mentor, Peter G. Daniel, talks about this, is that your vision is what you have exchanged your life for. You need to pick one problem. At the end of the, it might be your problem can evolve into several things, right? But you need to pick a problem. And when you pick one, and you need to pick one thing, at the end of your life, whatever you have achieved with that venture is what you have exchanged your life for. Life gives you time, and you use that time to work on something. At the end of it, are you going to have a conglomerate? Are you going to have a company? Are you going to have, you know whatever? What are you going to build, right? So you also need to pick a problem that it's not fickle to you. And we live in this, age of social media where there's a lot of projection. Not like we are all sharing our thoughts, but most times we misunderstand that. Someone can come online and share how climate change is an issue, right? And which in a way it is. I have personal opinions on that, but in a way it is. So that we need to clean up, we need to save the planet, and we need to do a lot of things. But by them sharing it, there's also this pressure that we all adopt that stance. We all try to solve that problem. We don't all have to solve the same problem. That you have shared the issue doesn't mean that we all have to solve the issue. We all have different ways we are, or different things we're supposed to work on, because it's going to get tough. And that is one thing I've realized. The journey is definitely going to get tough. And that is why you see people pick up things, but they never follow through. Because it's not in the first place, it wasn't their business. But they heard someone talk about the idea, they heard someone talk about it so passionately, and they decide, oh, I will do something about it. And they will start building a company, they will start building doing a project, they will start doing something. And when the push and when the chips are down, what happened? They abandoned that. I talk about this on how there's so much abandoned project and abandoned visions all around everywhere, right? Because we are taking up things that are not our business in the first place, right? A leader is someone who sits with an idea for a very long time and they solve for it. And whether the problem evolves, they solve for it. They metamorphose, right? They solve for that problem. So you need to pick something that you are passionate about and something that not passion. I'm not sure passion is the word. Something, if there's anything higher than passion, not something you're just motivated about, something you're passionate about, something that I think it was when we were speaking to Maya who highlighted this critical thing. The chips will come down, and Alex Moses talks about it this way: when you initially start off a project, you have this uninformed optimism about how everything will go well. But few weeks, few months, give it few years, things are going to get tough. Are you going to abandon? You ask yourself that question. What you are starting, are you going to abandon it when the push comes to shove? Right? So you need to pick a problem, something you are burdened by, something you are unable to ignore, something that you are willing to work on. Whether people have talked about this in different ways when you listen to a personal development conversation, something you are willing to work on if no one is going to pay you, right? We had that. I think, I don't know if it's Brian Stacy that talks about it that way. You need to pick one thing. You can't pick 10 either, too. You need to pick one thing, right? You need to pick it. One of the things I'm also, maybe I also share like why I started this live session. Someone asked me, how did I get the name? I got the name from, I'm not sure how I was reading that, but it was a verse in the Bible, Act 17 5 or 6. I think it's Act 17:6. And it talks about how Paul and Silas were seen as, who are these men who has they are men who had turned the world upside down. So that's how the scripture read. I think I have the scripture here. And when they found them, so this was talking about when Paul was in Thessalonica. I'm reading out of the Bible, right? And when they found them not, so when Paul wasn't found in Thessalonica, they drew Jason. So Jason was the person hosting him, and the rulers of the city crying, these that have turned the world upside down have come here titasso, right? So ideas turn the world upside down, and Paul was sharing ideas which were controversial to the society as of that time. So that was what inspired the title of this live sessions, inspired the title of this book. Get a copy of this book. How do ordinary people, become leaders who change the world, who turn the world upside down, right? So that is why, and this have fortunately become my, life question. I'm on a mission to find out how. I'm also on a mission to empower people to, join me in the journey, empower people to become extraordinary people that can, change the world or turn the world upside down. There are so many ideas we have as a society which are not true, which are not correct. So we also need to turn the world upside down in that way. So that is really my primary obsession. And this is, how do ordinary people become leaders who change the world? It's my life mission. And I am on a mission to find out how. And when I find out, I'll empower enough people to be able to change the world. That is my life mission. And that is also why I'm curious. So if you are a builder, if you are building something remarkable, you are, far out in your journey, you've had experiences, there are things you want to share with people and empower and encourage people along the journey, send us a message and we'll have you on this platform, right? So that is really the background. The second thing I wanted to talk about was, when you are a leader or when you are building something, there's the invisible phase, and I've been dealing with that recently, even personally in my personal life. Before you see the traction, before you become successful, before you get the funding, before there's visibility, before there's invitation, before you even have the confidence. And this is really where most people drop off, right? I talked about it. When you start off with your idea or with your vision that you want to work on, there's this uninformed optimism. You think you can, and yes, you can. You think you can do it. And halfway through, you now have an informed pessimism. There's a discourse online that with the age of social media, a lot of people come, and let me even use the instance of wealth, wealth creation. They come and tell you what they did to make money. Someone will tell you today is YouTube automation. Another person will tell you is content. Someone tell you is forex. Someone will say something else. Someone will say write a book. People have all shared this. Is there a truth in what they are saying? There are truths in what they're saying, and sometimes they show you screenshots. But because of a way, and also because we're a society that does not factor in pain and discomfort in our processes. And because of the way it's marketed, the psychology of marketing, we think that this is something I will start today, and in 10 days, I'll be able to make almost or even half of the amount of money the person is making. So you say, oh, let's start it. And when you start it by day 10, day 20, day 30, you are not seeing any traction. Someone comes online again and says, all these people are lying. It's not possible that they are making this money they're making from what they have told you. Yeah, they are the crooks and the scammers online. But there's that what you are actually experiencing. Let me give you the word for it is informed pessimism. You have seen all the obstacles and all the issues wrong, all the problems with that idea, with that project, and you have decided that, what, there is nothing that can save me from this. There is nothing I can do, and it's not possible that all these people are going through all these things and they're becoming successful. Right? So that hidden phase, that phase of your process, that phase that you work on your idea, that phase that you have launched your product, you launch your project, you launched your idea. I see a lot of launches, a lot these days. You are launching everywhere, but like nothing. There's cricket. Nobody. I think I dealt with yesterday. I was just like, why am I still posting? I should take a break and do something else. Yes, there's also the thing about resting. Resting is not an end point, it's part of your journey. There's the thing about resting, through your journey, making sure you're taking rest and you're not burnt out and you don't entirely quit the project because you're not seeing what you're doing. But this informed pessimism, you need to push through it, and very few persons push through it, right? I'm sharing with you because I'm going through it and I'm pushing through it. And if you're going through it, let us know what you're doing in the comments, right? So I think this is one of the hardest phase about building any successful venture. The season of no result, because you are going to have those seasons, right? The season of no traction, the season that nobody recognizes you, the season that when you are looking for platforms again. People are looking for platforms, right? So this is really the core, most persons' current realities, and they fall off here, and they will say, okay, it means that this doesn't work. This is not what they are doing. For example, in the case I gave about wealth creation, that it's not possible that they're doing this and they're making money. And what happens? They drop off and start all over again looking for another idea. And you see people move from year to year, start off new ideas, new projects every year, and they haven't made any, actually you haven't made any progress, because regardless of where you move from here to here, you're still going to face that challenge. You are still going to have obstacles. There are still going to be there are obstacles. Once you Myron Golden talks about it this way, immediately you set an intention to do something, there will be an obstacle on your way. I'm not sure how he there's a word he uses it. I don't know, obstacle follows intention, right? Immediately you decide. If you decide you're going to film today, we decided to do this live stream today. What happened? There was that few minutes of network connection. And you can actually say, oh, maybe I stop it, right? Immediately you set an intention to do something, there's going to be an obstacle on the way. So whether you move from one idea to another, that is why it's important to pick an idea you're going to work on, whether you see progress or not. when we reference back Elon Musk's case and when you listen to some of his interviews, he was willing to work on the rocket launches till it worked, right? He said he wasn't going to quit. So he worked in the fourth time or the third time, fine. But if it was never going to work, he has decided that this is something he wants to work on and he's going to work on it till he becomes successful. So imagine picking something off social media because someone said it's a cool thing to do. Someone said it's the next best thing, right? That is why we have, someone said, we have doctors who are supposed to be artists and artists who are supposed to be doctors. People are all disjointed in their destinies or disjointed in what they're supposed to work on. And when you find out when you are old, you are now, you see people with hollow dreams and like their life had made no impact. They hadn't lived their best life and they are just living filled with regrets. That is one of the worst places to be, when you get older, living with regrets because you picked up someone's dream, you started working on it, it got difficult, you abandoned it, and you never went back to what you're supposed to be doing, right? So that is the second key point, right? The invisible phase, the phase where nobody sees you, nobody recognizes you, nobody acknowledges what you're doing. And as human beings, we are not built in silos. We are built for fellowship. We are built for communities, right? You can't say there's no one who is going to work on an idea for like years without any form of, validation. It's not going to affect your psyche. Yeah, there are the geniuses and the crazy people out there. But yeah, so we are built for that. But sometimes you need to pick something, and yes, you can find your you can seek for your validation in several ways, which is you find your community of people who understand what you're doing. It might not come externally, it might not come from your family, but it might come from other people, right? Who encourage you on your journey. So the invisible phase is really what distinguishes people who become successful, who become leaders versus people who, are not. So let's go to the third point. What actually, from the conversations and from my experience, and it's actually written in this book, right? I have this book is a good read. I keep referencing it. This book is a good read. I love I wrote it, but I love reading the book, right? It has I think four parts, right? The first part talks about how do you start your journey of impact even if you feel unqualified or overlooked, right? That's the first part. The second part talks about how to get people to follow you. Because if you are a leader, you need people to follow you. You can't be a leader, but leadership is an internal thing. But it's not just you working on that idea. There are a lot of people that work on the idea. So how do you get those people to follow you? Part three is you have to learn to fight or you will not succeed, which I've been talking about earlier. You have to learn to fight, not externally, most times internally. I have a newsletter called Your Mind is the Armageddon. Yes, that is 99% of our battles are internal. You have to learn to fight yourself when you are undisciplined, when you lack motivation, when things are failing around you, when there are repeated failures. You have to learn to fight. You have to fight. You have to also learn to fight with people, right? People will come with their values. When you have more people, you have to balance out values, some of those things. So you have to learn to fight or you will not succeed. And part four talks about you have to protect what you build. You see people build conglomerates, amazing businesses, and then in an instance, in a slight of a I don't want to say slight because most times those things are calculated. The whole thing crumbles. So whatever you have built, if you have a vision and you've spent your entire life building it, you also have to protect it, right? Or people are going to, destroy it. So the third point I want to raise here is what have I actually seen that has transformed ordinary people into leaders? Both the people I've spoken to and both, from my research, what have I seen? The first one I want to talk about is responsibility. And I think Jordan Peterson, if you listen to him long enough, he highlights this concept, not some of all this concept, this particular concept, the concept of responsibility. And I wouldn't say we entirely as a generation have lost that plot, but I would say that very few persons recognize that, right? Recognize that that is what is missing in their life. I checked out what's really the definition of, responsibility is having a duty or obligation to deal with something or to take care of something. And most times, not most time, it's 100% self-imposed obligation. You decide, you have seen a problem, and our society, regardless of where you're joining from, is riddled with thousands and thousands of problems. But because of social media, we all come online and we yap about the problems, and yes, it helps you vent. But the problem is still there. What's happening? No one has decided, pick a problem. No one has decided that it is their responsibility to solve for it. And yeah, most times always defer to the government, the leaders, the this. There are some of these problems that you can solve on your own or you can solve in your community. Right? We are all deflecting responsibility. We do the blame thing, we do the shame, yeah, blame. You pass on the blame a lot. I was listening to someone do an expose on Genesis this past week, and he talked about, the Adam and Eve concept. What really happened when God said, what have you done? Why didn't Adam just say, I did this, I disobeyed, I did what you asked me not to do? Why was he why was the first thing out of his mouth is, it is this woman? Why are we so predisposed to, shifting blame, to passing on responsibility? you know so that's the distinction. That is something I have seen. People have decided that there's an issue with, for example, the automobile industry. The fossil fuels are depleting. Most times I'm not sure how they go there. The fossil fuels are depleting, right? How can we sustainably power the automobile industry in 1,000 years from now? And you would say, is that an existential problem? And that's the thing. Most times, the problem you are solving doesn't need to be existential. You say, we have better problems, so go and solve. And I see that conversation online, which I think is wrong. For example, the instance I'm giving about automobile industry, you see somebody coming to react. Why don't you go and solve poverty? That is not their problem to solve. They need to pick a problem that they can solve in long term, because there are going to be obstacles. It needs to be something they are passionate about. It needs to be something that they want to work on. If poverty is such an issue for you, why don't you do something? You see, they don't want to be responsible, right? Right? You have over romanticized people and you feel like, oh, they have the resources, they have the manpower, they should solve it. You do not have it. You can't do anything. You are handicapped. If you've come across this, if you're online frequently, you've come across how someone was talking about how Elon Musk wealth can be divided all across people in the world and everybody will have a fraction of the money or something. Why don't you make your own wealth so that yours will be divided? You see the thing? We think that these are exceptional, extraordinary people with extraordinary circumstance, and we are handicapped, and that's the problem with the comparison. You think that they are extraordinary, you're an ordinary person, there is nothing you can do. Therefore, they, because they have this extraordinary thing going on for them, they are required, they are obligated to solve your problems. And that is the saddest thing. Like, why? You are even yielding away your power. You are removing whatever agency you have. You see? So one thing I've seen transform people, right, into extraordinary leaders is you stop waiting. I was pitching someone for a talk, and I was trying to pitch this idea, and I was telling them I was going to name it "Stop Waiting for the Adult in the Room." It looks a different way. Stop waiting for the rich person. Stop waiting for the white person. Stop waiting for US. If you have a problem in your country, solve it. Why do you think someone else? Why are you yielding your agency? Why do you think those people have extraordinary circumstance to solve their problem, and they should also solve your own problem, right? So you stop waiting. If there's one thing that you need to do a deep dive on, if you are still struggling with, some of the ideas we're sharing here is really what does responsibility mean, and what does it mean to take responsibility. I think is something that you should understudy. The turning point is this: when someone stops asking, why is nobody doing something about it? And you start asking, what can I do? We've heard this in several said several ways. It's not what the country can do for you, is what you can do for the country. That is another version of that. Stop saying, why is nobody doing something? Why is nobody fixing the road? Why is nobody talking about this? Why don't you do that? And there's something I talk about in this book, which is that there are a lot of problems in the country and there are enough to go around. If you are seeing a problem, it means that it's a burden to you. If something is keeping you awake at night, it's a burden to you. It's not for you, and there's a reason why you are seeing it, and there's a reason why you think it's a burden. Why are you not doing something? Why do you now think that people who are not seeing that problem that way should come and solve the problem? There's a reason why you wake up every morning and you think maternal health is really a challenge. But I am not seeing it that way. I have something else. I think, for example, the automobile industry needs to be, worked on. But you are trying to get me, who is passionate about the automobile industry, to work on maternal health. Do you see the disconnect? Our passions are different, and we have to turn those passions into responsibility. The second thing here, the first one I talk about is what? Responsibility. The second thing is repetition. And I'm dealing with this. Consistency is a game changer. And it's something I don't necessarily have, which I'm really working on, especially in this 2026. Repetition. Your ability to stay through those boring things. Even in businesses, they are the fun things, right? They are the exciting aspect, no matter the business. They are the exciting aspect of the business, but they're also the boring things. The exciting ones, we love to do it oftentimes, whatever that looks at, like for your business or for your project or for your idea. But they are the boring things which you must work on, right? And leadership is built through repetitive action, even for the boring things. So not just the fun things, the boring things, the whatever it is, if it's balancing your account statements, if it's your administrative expense, whatever that is built to repetition. Repetition is not one small, it's not just one, it's not a big bang, it's not a big stage, it's not a most times it's not a platform. It's series of occasions where you have shown yourself a leader, when you have shown yourself, worthy of this title. It's not necessarily about the title, right? So repetition. They are fine. Leaders that I've seen, successful leaders I've seen, are fine with repeating a task. Repetition to build. Myron talks about it this way: repetition to build mastery. Right? When you start content creation or when you start building your personal brand, there are days where it's going to feel repetitive. You're like, why am I even doing this? I was having that yesterday. Like, is this necessary? Are there no better ways to do this? Can't I just do something else? But repetition builds what? Mastery. There is no big moment. There is no big platform. There is no grandeur. Even the big platforms, if you're not prepared enough for it, you even go there, you mess up. So leadership is built through repetitive, consistent action. I'm not sure how to share this point without belaboring it, right? Repetition, repeating not just the exciting things, but the boring stuff, the thing that nobody wants to do, right? The third one is around courage before confidence. There's a distinction, and I think it's Leila Homosis that talks about this. Alex the Homosis, one of them, talks about what is really confidence. Well, that was the day I learned it. Confidence is your ability to do something based off of your past experience or your skill or your level of preparation. You think you can do something. I think I can come on this live stream and share based on my past experience, sharing on this live stream, interviewing people on this live stream, or doing a live stream. That is confidence. But courage is acting despite fear. And if you're a first time leader or if you're an ordinary person trying to transition, you don't have proof. You don't have proof of, and the proof most times is not to other people, it's to yourself. What proof do you have that if you stand on a stage, you will not have stage fright? It's because you have stood on several stages, and even though you had stage fright in those phases, you've managed to deliver your speech successfully. So when you're currently on this stage, your body remembers, your mind remembers, right? You have confidence, you believe that you can do it. But courage is that it's your first time here. You just arrived. And you still act despite the fear, the uncertainty, the confusion. It comes with some sense of boldness, right? Courage over confidence. Because most times you wouldn't have done this before. It's your first time, right? So not necessarily be obsessed over confidence, because I know I keep on using a Elon Musk story online because I think we have all come across some of those stories. He wasn't a someone asking, you are not a rocket scientist. Where did all this come from? Why? Right? It also shows you that you can work on an idea that you'd have no prior experience, prior skill, prior preparation. You can start off something. But what you need to start off is what? Courage. And as you take it day by day, you build what? Confidence. You can start off despite your fear, despite your background, despite the um I was talking about it to someone that most times why I don't want to run online business is that someone will come and drag me, I will face a backlash online. But I'm doing something that looks like that. Start despite of what the things that you know that can go wrong. You start, and as you go through, you build what? Confidence. So don't wait to feel ready. But there's no certainty. Someone said we all don't know what we are doing, right? If you don't take away anything from this session, take away, we nobody knows what they are doing. We are trying things, failing and repeating and adjusting. Nobody knows the grand plan. Nobody knows where we will be in 2036. I do not know. I have no idea. I have a plan towards that, but I'm not obsessed about finding out. But from now till 2036, I will keep showing up every day, failing, repeating, gaining mastery over the skills that I've chosen to work on. The fourth one, let's move. We're out of time. The fourth one here is staying power, and I think we've talked about it. You need to immediate whatever you decide to do. Mark, remember my words. And I think most of the things I've started off and how I've stayed through is because I heard about this earlier. Myron talked about it, the Homosi talked about it, my mentor talked about it, which is you have to, in everything, even when it comes to spiritual things, a lot of us are starters. We start off things, especially January. I think January makes everybody a visionary builder, a doer. We all want to start. There's some things I wanted to do this year, but I haven't started. But we are also amazing at starting, but very few remain. And we're not even at finishing. Very few remain. We are all There was a project I started and I was just facing challenges. Like it was like every day I had one bad news after the other. I was just so many bad news. Every day is like something is going wrong. I'm like, should I even be here? Let me just give up. And I think I want to preface this way. This year, there was something I was talking about earlier with someone that as Africans, we do not entirely share our failure stories. So it feels like when people fail, it's not part of their psyche, it's not anything outside. They internalize that failure because we don't have enough people sharing, how the challenges they are facing and they are quitting, how why they quit, all those kind of stories. But then halfway through the year, like February, March, there's not like influx of on I think this is on Instagram. Maybe it's my maybe it's also my what's it called now? My algorithm. A lot of people are closing down their businesses. I'm just like, what is happening? you also need to balance that. Know when to quit and know when you need to continue. That takes discernment. I don't think anybody can tell you like when I don't think anybody knows really. But we are, and I was having that conversation with God, like, oh, I need to quit on this thing. Like, you haven't tried long enough. You haven't done this, for example, you haven't done this live stream long enough to know that you should quit doing it. You haven't done the 100th one and it wasn't working and you quit. You are still in the first you've never you see the thing. We quit so often, so easily. As I'm telling you this, I'm telling myself, right? We quit so often, so easily, and most times it's not. I don't want to say it's over fickle things. It's really aggregations. If you started this project, it failed, another one it failed. If you start the third one, you're like, okay, let me just quit. There's also a combination of a lot of things that are happening in people's psyche when they quit. You can't say what it is, but stay in power. Stay in power. You want to. I tell myself that I want to quit when I know I have tried everything, every idea that I'm supposed to implement, everything. I've tried my possible best and it's not working. But till I am confident, and you would know internally, and this is me, till I am certain that I've tried every possible thing to salvage a project and it's unsalvageable, and I don't know anybody that I can call to salvage it, and like there is really no end, that is when I will quit. Till then, you keep going, you keep showing up, and that takes some level of mental fortitude. I also want to acknowledge that because it's not been easy. It takes some level of mental fortitude when you're not seeing progress, when things are failing, when you're incurring costs, right? And nothing is working, like nothing is moving. Sometimes I say, God, you need to send us some encouragement. Encourage us that we're in the right path. Right? So, but that is the fourth thing I've seen leaders, they are people that, so you also have to choose what you want. You see, I keep going back to, you have to choose what you want to work on. You have to say, if it doesn't pay me, if I fail, can I start up? I'm also seeing successful businesses that, you know, they started off, they closed down, and they took a year off. And when they came back, they were now successful. Remember, we talked about you have to learn to rest in your journey because it's what a marathon, life is a marathon, not a sprint. And but our generation, we're all sprinting towards life. But life is the one long marathon. You also need to learn to take your rest. But rest is different from quitting, right? But decide that while there's still something in me, I am working on this. I can take breaks, I can take rest, I can take hiatus, but I'm gonna be back. So stay in power. And the last one is identity shift. At some point, and this ties to responsibility, you need to stop seeing yourself as a spectator in life. You need your life to count, right? How does an ordinary person change the world? Is an identity thing. You decide that. Someone asked me that, why does it feel like I've now suddenly become passionate and just doing everything everywhere? Let me tell you why. Jim Rohn talks about that the day your life changes is the day you encounter the emotion disgust. You are disgusted with where you are, how you are living. You just want change, and that drives you, through the finishing line. But I don't think for me it was disgust. It was like I read this scripture that talked about the parable of the talent. You should read it. And I've read that a couple of times, but that day I read about it and I realized that for whatever talent, for whatever skill that you have, you need to make sure that it's impacting someone's life because you're going to account for it. There are a lot of people out there who have several beliefs about them coming back. I don't think I want to come back. It's just my one life. I've faced a lot of troubles and challenges. I want to get through it. And the second thing is, none of us is getting out alive. We're all getting out older, and that's our lives. So I have one life. I have one time to do it. I want my skills, my talent. I want it to count. I can't. Even as ladies, and this speaks to ladies, I talk about this. I spent my entire 20s, waiting for somebody to save me. And now I realize that nobody's coming to save me. And I'm now trying to like do everything I can. So think of it's identity shift. Decide that you're not going to be a spectator in your own life. You are going to do something. Your life is going to have an impact in someone else. It can be few, but it doesn't have to be the whole world. It can be your community. It can be your street. It can be where you live. That at least 10 persons have changed either their ideas, either their trajectory of life, or either their level of income. It does something about their life just because of you. Just because of you. Right? So we had a wonderful session. We I talked a lot, but this is really what I'm learning. I am learning, I'm summarizing now. I'm learning to build without, immediate validation, right? I'm learning about consistency, repetition, especially for the boring things. I'm learning patience, that good, successful things take time. It takes time. And you have to be in it for the long run. That is whether you're doing investment, whether you're learning a skill, whatever you decide to do for the long haul. If you're not going to be doing this 10, 20 years from now, don't start it. Right? I'm learning to create before momentum. So I think next week, if we don't have any guests, we're still going to come up and do this. I'm learning that leadership is more quieter, more lonelier, than social media portrays. Their history most times edits itself because it's accounting for the success that the person has achieved. I think I talked about it. I'm learning about meaningful ways to grow slowly, take rest, but choose to remain, right? Choosing to remain, staying, for the long haul. And so finally, so maybe ordinary people become leaders the moment they stop waiting for ideal conditions. Maybe leadership begins when someone decides, I may not have the biggest platform. I may not clearly know what I'm doing. And we've talked about it. We all don't know what we're doing. I may not be fully ready, but I care enough about this problem to begin today. And perhaps that is how change always starts. I care enough. I believe I'm responsible to solve for this. Not everybody will see this problem, but I have seen it and it keeps me awake at night. I've decided I'm going to solve it. And you find people of like minds and you solve the problem. You solve the problem. So let me know. Um, I've been talking for a while. Let me know if share with me in the comments. Let me read the comments. Let's see, you know, what have I been chatting on along about that resonated with you? What are the things that resonated with you? What do you think? What do you think are some of the reasons that ordinary people you have seen have done remarkable things? You know, what are some of those reasons? Um what are some of those ideas? What are some of the behaviors? What are some of the traits? What are some of the pathways that you have seen that people have, changed their world? Yes, yes. Well, reading your comments. Okay, okay. So I think we're having issues with our stream on LinkedIn, but I think that streamed well on YouTube. But we're going to end the stream here today. I think we're almost at time. Um, get this book. This book is amazing. And if you can't get it, um, join the challenge, right? Join the challenge and stand a chance to get a copy of this book, especially if you're in Nigeria. I think this is a good read, and I would love to get you know, your reviews on the book. And see you next week. Cheers.